In his first year at university, everything in Soro's life was normal, but in his second year, during his second period class, he would suddenly be teleported to deadly trials. These trials always had innocent people's lives on the line, sometimes even millions of people or entire cities would be at risk, whether they were unaware of the danger, held captive, or had failed the trials themselves. The challenges varied, some physical, others moral, but all with life or death stakes. What makes it worse is that no one in the classroom notices when he disappears. It seems like time freezes for everyone else. Soro's absence is unrecognized, and the world continues as if nothing happened. When he returns, everything resumes as normal, leaving him with no evidence that anything unusual occurred. As Soro faces these trials, he begins to realize that the people he is trying to save are somehow connected to his own past, and that these trials are not random. The more he faces, the more he learns, but also the more it becomes clear that the cost of failing isn't just someone else's life, it's his own humanity. He also has a best friend, Rosen, who he considers a brother. Rosen's dream is a distant one, a goal that feels almost unreachable, but one that he pursues with relentless determination. He's always wanted to become the greatest swordsman, someone who fights not for fame or glory, but for the pure joy of the challenge and the honor that comes with mastering his craft. His journey, however, is more about the experiences along the way than the actual destination, and he understands that true strength lies in the lessons learned, not the victories won. Rosen spends hours each day training with his sword, working tirelessly to hone his skills. Though he's from America, he often spent his nights at home watching anime for fun. It was the sword fights and powers that fascinated him, not some lame desire to be like the characters, but the raw energy and skill on display. Two characters stand out the most to him, though he'd never admit to admiring them, one being a certain lost swordsman who always seems to get lost, and another with a calm, stoic demeanor and a style that flows like water. These characters caught his attention because of their swordsmanship and the badass way they fought, but Rosen never cared to acknowledge anything as cheesy as idolizing an anime character. Rosen's dedication goes beyond just the sword. His heart remains humble, grounded by the lessons of kindness and connection. One memory stands out from his childhood. When he was hungry and wandering, a small child offered him a sandwich. It had fallen on the ground and was dirty, but Rosen ate it anyway. He didn't hesitate or make a fuss. The way he ate it, unbothered by the dirt and simply accepting the kindness, subtly reflected the attitude of that certain lost swordsman Rosen admired, even if he never acknowledged it. That moment, simple as it was, taught him the importance of humility and gratitude, and it shaped his view of the world. Despite his dream being so far off, Rosen remains focused on the present, cherishing the small moments of life. He's always there for Soro, his best friend, unaware of the dangerous trials that Soro faces. As Soro grapples with the weight of his secret, he begins to wonder how long he can keep it from Rosen without risking their close bond. When Soro and Rosen first met, they immediately hit it off. One of the first things they joked about was how Soro's name reminded them of Zoro. The two laughed over the coincidence, bonding instantly over the fact that Soro shared the same name as a certain lost swordsman from their favorite anime. It became a running joke between them, and whenever they hung out, they'd tease Soro about being a swordsman himself, despite the fact he had no interest in swords. It became a way to further strengthen their friendship, a shared joke that only deepened their connection. Soro and Rosen also bonded over something else, how ridiculously bad Soro was at remembering directions. If they were driving anywhere, and Soro was behind the wheel, he'd always rely on the map on his phone, constantly checking it to make sure they didn't get lost. It became another running joke between them, with Rosen teasing Soro about his legendary lack of direction sense. Sometimes they'd even laugh about it mid-drive, pointing out the absurdity of Soro being so lost in the simplest places. It was just another part of their friendship that felt real and grounded, as if nothing could ruin their bond. Even though Soro had been to Rosen's house many times, he still used the map to get there. It was only after some time, through repeated trips, that Soro was finally able to navigate without the map, but not without a fair amount of effort and hesitation. Soro has always been one for watching anime as well, similarly to Rosen. In fact, they bonded partly because of it. However, Soro has always been someone who tries to think beyond what's considered possible or even comprehensible. He believes it's a simple fact. If you believe something without a doubt, anything becomes possible. But doubt is part of human nature and reasoning. Even with the most unshakable conviction, doubt always lingers, reminding him that no matter how firm your belief, uncertainty is always present. It's a part of being human, and that's what makes it so difficult to push aside. Because of the constant similarities to Zoro, Rosen jokes that Soro should seriously give swordsmanship a try. Rosen reaches for an excuse, trying to claim it as logic. You never know when the world might end. Why not know a way to fight back? The reasoning is a stretch, but Rosen presses it, shoving a practice wooden sword into Soro's hand with a grin and then walking off, whistling like it's no big deal. Soro rolls his eyes and dismisses the idea, though for a brief moment he reflects on Rosen's statement. Could there be some truth to it? After all, if the world was really going to end, maybe knowing how to fight back wouldn't be the worst idea. But, like usual, he pushes it aside, deciding that was definitely not the path he was going to follow. As Rosen walks off whistling after giving the wooden sword to Soro, he heads down the walking path in the direction of his own home. Soro watches him walk away, pondering some thoughts. Just as he's about to dismiss it all, he notices a girl running up to Rosen. Rosen, as usual, puts his arm around her naturally. Soro can't help but smirk, muttering to himself, "That sly fox must have texted a sneaky link or set himself up a date." He pauses for a moment, then admits, "When it comes to girls, I've gotta admit, he's great." Rosen walks on, whistling in the light breeze, his arm around the girl. Soro watches him disappear into the distance and can't help but think that he might just be the best at what he does. Soro stands there for a moment, his eyes still on Rosen's retreating figure, a mixture of amusement and mild envy bubbling within him. He shakes his head and turns to make his way home, the wooden sword still hanging from his hand. Rosen's casual attitude toward life, his effortless ability to connect with people, and his confidence in every situation, made Soro realize how much he still had to learn about living in the moment. As he walks down the familiar streets, Soro's thoughts wander back to the trials he faces. How many more lives will be at risk? How many more times will he be forced to face these life-or-death challenges, with no one ever noticing his absence? He knew that somehow his fate and the trials were tied to something far bigger than him. But there was no one to share the burden with. No one except Rosen, maybe, but how could he explain this impossible, ridiculous situation? No one would believe him, not even Rosen, no matter how good of a friend he was. He absently twirls the wooden sword in his hand as he walks. The thought of wielding a real sword feels foreign to him. After all, his life wasn't about fighting with weapons or taking on challenges for honor, it was about surviving. But still, there was something strangely compelling about the sword. Maybe it was Rosen's enthusiasm, or the casual way he had pushed it into Soro's hands. Soro couldn't deny it. The idea of learning to defend himself, learning the way of the sword. There was a certain allure to it, even if he wasn't ready to admit it yet. By the time Soro reaches his house, the sun is beginning to dip low in the sky, casting long shadows across the streets. The wooden sword still feels out of place in his hands, but he's too lost in thought to care. He knows Rosen will keep teasing him about it, about how Soro might just be the next greatest swordsman to ever live. And despite himself, Soro chuckles. Maybe Rosen wasn't so wrong after all. Maybe it wouldn't be such a terrible idea to give it a try, to see what swordsmanship could teach him. Soro pushes open the door to his house and steps inside. The familiar sights and smells of his home ground him again, pulling him away from the strange, nagging thoughts. But even as he sets the wooden sword down on the nearby table, he can't shake the feeling that something is on the horizon, something big, something he won't be able to face alone. He wonders briefly if Rosen might be the one person who could help him. But that's a thought for another time. For now, there's nothing more to do but keep living, keep going, and keep trying to make sense of the mess that's become his life. As he sits down on the couch, he picks up his phone, half expecting a text message from Rosen. Sure enough, there it is, a simple message that reads, "Yo, ready to go sword shopping yet?" Soro snorts. It was just like Rosen to push him, to challenge him. He could practically hear Rosen's voice through the message, full of that stupid, confident energy that always made Soro roll his eyes. But there's a part of him that's intrigued, that wonders what it would be like to step into that world Rosen was so eager to bring him into. Maybe one day, Soro thinks, as he puts the phone down and stands up. For now, he has to focus on what matters, getting through another day, surviving whatever the world throws at him next. But deep down, something tells him that his world is about to change in ways he can't even imagine. As Soro puts his phone down with a sigh, the last of the day's thoughts still lingering in his mind, he stands up from his desk. The weight of the wooden sword still resting awkwardly in his hand reminds him of Rosen's joke, and he can't help but laugh under his breath. Maybe I'll just try it out for a bit, he thinks, but then quickly dismisses the idea. It was just a joke after all, nothing more than another one of Rosen's random ideas. Shaking his head, he heads out the door, deciding to clear his thoughts with a walk. The evening air is crisp, and as he steps onto the street, his mind is still on everything and nothing at once. He doesn't know what he expected, but the sound of his shoes hitting the pavement quickly becomes the only thing that grounds him. And then, just as he's lost in thought, a flicker of something catches his attention. Across the street, the woman, stands outside a cafe. She's a dazzling presence that pulls his gaze as if by force. The light catches her dark hair just right, making it shine like waves under a moonlit sky. Her green eyes are sharp, yet there's a softness to them, something Soro can't quite place. For a brief second, time seems to slow around him. His heart skips a beat, and his mind goes blank. He doesn't even notice the small, distracted smile tugging at the corner of his lips as he stares at her. But then, with a casual flick of her eyes, she catches him. Her eyebrow arches and she speaks, breaking the spell. "Need something?" Soro's face flushes instantly. His stomach churns with embarrassment as his brain scrambles for a way to save himself. He looks down, hoping to avoid further attention, and tries to play it cool. No, sorry, you look familiar, that's all." He says it with the most innocent tone he can muster, but his heart is pounding in his chest. She just gives him a faint, knowing smile before turning toward the cafe, her eyes glinting with an unspoken thought. As she walks away, Soro can't help but glance back, and that's when he sees it, her eyes, full of mystery, lingering on him with an intensity he can't quite understand. He doesn't know why, but the moment sticks with him as he walks away. Thoughts racing in a way he hadn't anticipated. Soro continues down the street, his footsteps faltering slightly as the encounter replays in his mind. He tries to brush it off, but there's something about her, about that moment, that he can't shake. The way her gaze locked onto him with such calm confidence, the way she seemed to see right through him. It's not something that happens often, and it's enough to leave him feeling unsettled. He shakes his head, muttering to himself, "It's just a random encounter. Nothing to overthink." But the problem is, that's exactly what Soro does, overthink. His mind races, connecting dots that don't exist. What did she mean by that look? He can't help but wonder if there's more to it than just a chance meeting. Maybe she's just someone passing through. Or maybe, stop, he tells himself, cutting off the train of thought. As he walks further, the cool air biting at his skin, he decides to turn down a side street to clear his head. He's been dealing with these strange feelings ever since the trials started, and now this. It's like the universe is throwing distractions at him when he can barely keep his head above water. The wooden sword still feels strangely heavy in his hand as he walks, and he can't help but glance down at it. Remembering Rosen's teasing about swordsmanship. Maybe he'll actually try it, but why? What would it change? Maybe it was just another distraction, like the woman. Maybe Rosen was right in some weird way. He might need to learn to fight back, to defend himself when everything else is going sideways. As he walks, Soro finally spots a familiar landmark, a small park bench beneath an old oak tree. He's walked past it 1,000 times, but today it feels different. He decides to sit down, leaning back and looking up at the sky, letting his thoughts settle. It's quiet here, just the sound of rustling leaves and the occasional car driving by. But then, for the first time that day, he feels something, clarity. He's still unsure about the trials, about why they've started or why he's being forced to do them. But something tells him he's on the verge of understanding. Maybe it's the sword, maybe it's that strange interaction with the woman, or maybe it's just everything catching up to him. His phone buzzes in his pocket, breaking the moment of peace. He pulls it out to see a text from Rosen. "Yo, I swear you've been thinking about that sword all day. Ready to give it a shot yet? I've got some moves I could teach you. You never know when the world's gonna end, right?" Soro laughs softly, shaking his head at Rosen's antics. "Maybe I'll try it, just to see what it's all about. Might help take my mind off things." As he types out a quick response, "I'll think about it." Soro stands up, tucking the phone away. The weight of the sword is still there, but now it feels less out of place. Maybe it's not just a joke. Maybe, just maybe, it's something more. With a deep breath, Soro heads back toward home, the evening settling into a calm that mirrors the stillness in his mind. Whatever comes next, whether it's the trials, or the mystery of the girl, or even Rosen's persistent challenges, he feels a flicker of readiness inside him. He's not sure what it is yet, but it feels like the start of something big. And for the first time in a long while, Soro feels like he might be prepared for it. As Soro continues to walk down the familiar path, the rhythmic sound of his shoes hitting the pavement becomes a steady metronome to the thoughts swirling in his mind. There's something strangely comforting in the simplicity of it all, the beat of his footsteps syncing with his pulse, But beneath that calm, a deeper truth begins to bubble up, one that he's never fully acknowledged, one that feels almost too big to confront. He pauses briefly at an intersection, waiting for the light to change, and in that moment, he's struck by a thought. A certain confidence settles within him, not loud or brash, but deep and unwavering, as if an invisible hand has pressed a truth into the core of his being. I have a creator. The thought isn't new, but today it feels weighty in a way it never has before. The concept of a creator, someone or something with a hand in the fabric of his existence, had always lingered in the back of his mind. It was a vague notion, something passed off in idle thoughts. But now, standing on the edge of this strange journey he's been pulled into, it feels undeniable. He's been chosen for something, and not by accident. Soro shifts his weight, looking both ways as he crosses the street. He's not sure how to process the weight of this belief. The idea of a creator suggests there is purpose in everything, in every moment, even in the smallest of encounters. Every trial he faces, every stranger he meets, every fleeting connection might carry significance. The very fact that his life seems so inexplicably entwined with these trials and bizarre encounters, could this all be by design? He's not sure whether to feel comforted or terrified by the thought, but for some reason, he leans toward comfort. In his heart, there's an overwhelming sense of being loved by this unseen creator. Whether it's true or not doesn't matter, it's the choice he's made. To believe that he is loved, even if the world around him seems indifferent, even if fate throws him into these impossible situations, is something Soro knows with certainty. As he continues his walk, the world around him seems to change ever so slightly. His mind begins to stretch beyond the confines of his immediate reality, questioning everything that's happened and everything yet to come. What if every encounter is a choice? What if each person, each situation, even every passing moment is presenting him with a decision, a path that will lead to an infinite number of possibilities? He stops for a moment at a street corner, looking at the intersection ahead of him. There are so many roads to take, each leading in a different direction, but how would he ever know which one was the right one? Does it even matter? Soro realizes, for the first time, that he's been thinking about life all wrong. He'd always thought of life as a straight line, a progression of events leading him to a predetermined outcome. But what if the truth was far more complex? Each choice he made, the way he walked, the people he spoke to, the things he did or didn't do, could send him down a completely different path. Each encounter could lead to new opportunities, new challenges, or even new trials. There was no singular fate waiting for him at the end of the road, but a series of branching paths that would keep diverging the more he walked. And somehow, in each fork, there was the possibility of change, of growth, or even destruction. Every decision, whether large or small, could be the spark that ignited something monumental. A thought nags at him. Can he ever truly make the right choice? He shakes his head slightly, smiling to himself. The answer feels more like a riddle than a fact. How could anyone know what the right choice was, when everything about the world around them was so unknowable? Maybe there's no such thing as a wrong choice, Soro muses, only paths that lead to different versions of who we're supposed to become. The more he contemplates it, the more he starts to wonder about the trials, the ones that seem designed to test him, to challenge his very humanity. Are they my creator's way of showing me the paths? Every trial could represent a choice, a way of shaping his future. Each challenge, each confrontation might present him with the opportunity to choose what kind of person he will be. But that means he can never know which path is truly the right one until he's already walked it. As he walks on, his thoughts shift once again, this time back to the woman from earlier. He had barely registered the moment, but now he can't stop thinking about it. Her beauty had struck him, not just because of how she looked, but because of how she made him feel. And in that instant he realizes something else. What if beauty is just another one of those decisions? Like everything else, he had decided, in that fleeting moment, that she was beautiful. But was it really the woman who was beautiful? Or was it his own choice to see beauty in her? Beauty, like everything else, is subjective. It is not simply something inherent in a person or thing, it is a choice to see it. And maybe that's how life works too. We don't just walk through life blindly, we choose how to see it, how to engage with it. Beauty is no different. What makes something beautiful is the observer's willingness to recognize it, to let it touch them. Soro smiles at the thought. Life is a series of choices. Everything, from the people he encounters to the decisions he makes, is an opportunity to choose how he will experience the world. Maybe he can choose to see the world as beautiful, even when it's difficult, even when it's uncertain. With that realization, a strange sense of peace settles over him. Beauty is everywhere, just waiting to be recognized, and so is everything else, every encounter, every trial, every moment. They're all opportunities, just like the paths ahead of him, all leading to something new, something unknown, something that will help shape who he is becoming. With that thought, Soro feels a new sense of resolve. There's no need to have everything figured out. The beauty of life is in the choices, the opportunities, and the possibilities that come with each decision. He can choose to walk through life with his eyes open, ready to see the beauty in the unexpected. And for the first time in a long while, he feels ready to embrace the journey, wherever it leads. As Soro lingers at the street corner, the rhythm of his thoughts begins to settle into a clearer pattern, like the steady ticking of a clock, each second bringing him closer to a profound realization. The earlier reflections swirl in his mind, weaving together the threads of his existence, and he can feel something powerful stirring within him. It's as if the world around him, with all its chaos and uncertainty, is quietly offering him a single undeniable truth. He looks up, the busy street stretching ahead of him, but this time, his gaze isn't just focused on the road or the people around him. It's inward. The moments from earlier, the conversations, the choices, the encounters, all seem to converge into a single point of understanding. And in that moment, Soro realizes with a sense of clarity that goes beyond thought, he has been chosen. This isn't something he's been told, or something he's read or learned in a book. No, it's a feeling, one that fills him entirely. A deep certainty that's been building ever since he felt that spark of connection with the woman at the cafe. The feeling of being part of something larger, something beyond him. The doubts that used to cloud his mind, the questions that would leave him wondering if anything he did truly mattered, begin to fade, replaced by an overwhelming sense of being guided by something greater than himself. Soro's heart beats steady as he stands at the corner, an almost surreal calmness taking over his mind. It feels as though everything that has led him here was meant to happen. Each encounter, each choice, no matter how trivial it may have seemed, has brought him to this moment. He's been chosen for something that isn't immediately clear, but he feels it without a doubt. A pull, not from the world around him, but from something deeper, something that transcends the mundane decisions of daily life. For the first time, the question of why feels insignificant. What matters now is the certainty that he is loved, chosen, and that whatever path lies ahead, it's one that he is meant to walk. The feeling is not just a fleeting thought, but a deep-rooted truth, zero doubt, no hesitation. Soro smiles to himself, a quiet but confident expression forming on his face. The path may be unknown, and the future uncertain, but in this moment, he knows that everything that's happened has been part of a larger design, and that belief fills him with a sense of peace. He has a creator, and he is not alone. The journey he's on, the choices he makes, the encounters he has, all of it is part of something that was meant for him. And as he takes the first step forward, there's no fear, no uncertainty. There is only the quiet assurance that no matter what comes next, he has been chosen. As Soro continues his walk, the sense of calm that had settled over him begins to feel a little off. It's subtle at first, a slight shift in the air, like the moment before a storm. His heart thuds suddenly in his chest, and the familiar hum of the city feels distant, muffled, as if he stepped outside of time itself. For a moment, the world around him blurs. Then, without warning, his vision goes dark. He blinks, unsure if the shadows are his own, or if something else has swallowed him whole. His legs feel heavy, his body unresponsive as though it's been paralyzed mid-step. And then it all fades, like a dream slipping away as he struggles to hold on to it. When his senses return, he gasps, drawing in a sharp breath of cold air, but it doesn't feel right. The ground beneath his feet feels wrong. The world around him is distorted, unfamiliar. Soro's eyes snap open, and he realizes with a shock that the street he's been walking on has disappeared. He's standing in a vast dark space, with no sky above, no pavement beneath. It's as if he's been transported to some other realm. Wait, what? He mutters to himself, stumbling back a few steps, his heart pounding in his chest. His breath is shallow, his pulse quickening as he tries to make sense of his surroundings. Nothing makes sense. His body feels strange, like it's not fully his, yet it is. The silence around him is deafening, then it hits him. Did I just die? His mind races with panic. The certainty that had filled him moments ago seems distant now. The calmness, the belief that he was chosen, feels like a distant memory, a fleeting thought as a new wave of dread crashes over him. He looks down at his hands, his fingers trembling as he realizes they're real. He can still feel them. Everything is real, and yet nothing is. The strange, empty space presses in on him, the familiar world completely gone. It was just a dream? Soro shakes his head violently, trying to clear the fog in his mind. But then, the thought hits him with gut-wrenching clarity. Oh shit. Damn it. It happened again. His heart races even faster, a cold sweat prickling at his skin. He's been here before. In this strange limbo, in this place where nothing seems real. It's happened more than once now, but each time it feels more disorienting, more suffocating. What's happening? A sense of vertigo overtakes him, and his legs buckle beneath him, sending him to his knees. He grips the floor with shaking hands, trying to hold on to something, anything that might anchor him to reality. But it slips through his fingers like sand. Every logical thought is drowned by the terrifying unknown. Was this his punishment? Had he done something wrong? Was it the trials, the choices, or perhaps the path he chose that led him here? No, this can't be happening again. I don't understand. Soro clenches his fists, frustration and confusion bubbling over. He tries to breathe through the panic, but the more he thinks about it, the less it makes sense. The feeling of certainty, the belief that he was chosen, gone. Replaced by the crushing weight of this strange place. And then, like a soft whisper from the edges of his mind, a thought begins to form. Something so simple, yet it feels like a distant echo. Maybe it's not over yet. Maybe this is just another choice. The thought clings to him as he looks around, trying to find a way out, trying to make sense of it all. Could it be? Could this strange, frightening place be another trial, a test of some sort, another step in his journey? With shaky breath and trembling legs, Soro forces himself to stand, knowing that no matter how impossible the situation seems, he must face it. He's been here before, and if he was chosen, there must be a reason for it. Maybe, just maybe, this was the moment that would shape everything. Another opportunity to choose. But for now, as he stands in this incomprehensible space, all he can do is take one more step, unsure of where it will lead. As Soro stands in the surreal, disorienting space, his mind reels, trying to make sense of the overwhelming uncertainty. The panic that had risen in his chest starts to settle a bit, replaced by something more introspective. He breathes deeply, forcing himself to focus, to think clearly. Whatever this is, whatever this moment means, there must be a choice. He knows that much now. A thought forms in his mind, a realization so simple yet profound. Maybe this is the test. Maybe it's not about the path I take, but about how I choose it. About how I respond to the choices I'm given. As soon as that thought settles in, the air around him shifts, and a strange pressure builds in his chest. The silence breaks with a sharp ringing sound in his left ear, its tone jarring and unnatural. Soro's head snaps to the left, but there's nothing there, nothing visible at least. Then, as if to counterbalance the absence, a word suddenly flashes in front of him, its letters appearing in bold, stark contrast to the nothingness around him. Yes, it hangs in the air, centered slightly to his left. The ringing grows louder, echoing in his left ear, and the word pulses with an almost hypnotic force. His heart skips a beat. The simplicity of it, the decisiveness of it, it feels like an offer, an invitation, but an invitation to what? His instincts scream that it's a choice, but what does it mean? What's at stake? Before he can react, the ringing shifts, this time to his right ear. A louder, sharper tone pierces through, and the word no explodes into existence, this time more abrupt, more forceful, as if it's slamming into his mind with the weight of finality. It's not just the word itself, it's the feeling that comes with it, a clear boundary, a rejection. The noise fades, and there's only silence again. The space around him feels even more oppressive now, as though the world itself is waiting for him to decide. Soro blinks, his pulse quickening. The words hang there, frozen in the air. Yes, no. Is it really that simple? His mind races. Yes, no. To what? Is this a test? Or is it some sort of trap? What am I choosing, and what happens if I don't? The thought twists inside him, the confusion spiraling outward. The very nature of the choice is a riddle in itself. What does it mean to choose yes? What does it mean to choose no? There's no clear context, no explanation. It's just there, like a door he's supposed to walk through. But he has no idea what's on the other side. But then something clicks in his mind. Soro knows deep down that this isn't just about making a logical decision. It's about something deeper. This moment, this strange prompt, isn't testing his ability to reason. It's testing his ability to trust his instincts. His will to act in a world that makes no sense. A grin spreads across his face, the corners of his lips lifting with a defiant spark. "Fuck it," he mutters, almost to himself, though it feels more like a declaration. His eyes narrow on the floating words, that question echoing in his mind, yes, no. He knows what he's going to do. If ever prompted yes or no, good or bad, strong or weak, green or red. We choose green. He looks directly at the word yes, his chest swelling with a surge of adrenaline, the certainty building inside him like a wildfire. Because I choose green. I want to fucking go. The words, once hovering in the air, seem to flicker as though something is acknowledging his decision. The space around him seems to shift, the oppressive weight lifting just a little, and Soro feels a strange sense of release, like the very air itself has exhaled. The choice has been made. The uncertainty, the confusion, all of it fades into the background as he steps forward. This is his choice. Whatever happens next, whatever comes from it, Soro has made his decision. And in this strange, incomprehensible world, that's all that matters. And just like that, the ground beneath him shifts again, and the path forward is clear. Soro's mind is still buzzing with the weight of his choice, the strange sensation of having chosen something, anything, in a world so full of uncertainty. The silence around him is deep, the stillness suffocating, as if he's in the very eye of a storm. For a brief moment, there's peace, a rare clarity. His eyes are fixed on the word yes, the weight of it anchoring him in a strange, almost divine certainty. Then, in an instant it all shatters. A sharp jolt snaps him back to reality. His body jerks, and everything around him blurs into focus as if he's been yanked from one world and hurled back into another. The world around him is no longer the void, the empty space filled with impossible choices. His senses flood back in a rush, and suddenly, he's sitting at the dinner table. He blinks rapidly, his eyes adjusting to the soft, warm light of the dining room. The scent of freshly cooked food fills the air, familiar and grounding. His hand instinctively moves to rub his face, but something feels wrong. The words that had been floating in the air are gone, replaced by a strange emptiness in his chest. Then a voice cuts through the haze, sharp and insistent. "Soro, hey, what's going on?" His mother's voice is panicked, her hand gripping his shoulder, shaking him gently but firmly. Her face is filled with concern, eyes wide as she stares at him. Her lips move, but for a moment, it's like her voice is muffled, distant, as if he's underwater. Confusion clouds his mind, and the strange, ethereal feeling lingers on the edges of his consciousness. What just happened? Was that real? He blinks again, his vision clearing, and finally, the world around him takes full shape. He's back in the dinner chair, at the table with his family, who are all sitting with their heads bowed, eyes closed in prayer. The soft murmur of their voices surrounds him, but Soro feels detached from it, as if he's just woken from a dream, or worse, been pulled into a nightmare. "Soro," his mom repeats, more urgently this time. "You were saying strange things and then you just spaced out. Are you all right?" Soro blinks, shaking his head as if to clear the fog that still clings to him. The sensation of being caught between two worlds, between choices and dreams, is still so fresh. His body feels heavy, as though he's been holding his breath for far too long. I don't." His words come out jumbled, his voice rough. The sound of his own speech feels foreign. What was he saying? What was he doing? His mother doesn't let go of his shoulder, her eyes still full of worry. "You were saying things, Soro, saying things that didn't make any sense. Are you okay? Talk to me." He looks around the table, seeing the concerned faces of his family, his younger siblings glancing at him with wide eyes. He's not sure what to say. The dream, or whatever it was, still clings to him, too real to be a mere passing thought, but too strange to explain. The warmth of the dinner table contrasts with the strange coldness he just felt in that void. The steady rhythm of his family praying, their voices soft and familiar, feels oddly grounding now, as if he's been given a lifeline. His mother's touch, gentle but insistent, keeps him tethered to this reality. I think I was just zoning out," Soro finally says, his voice still shaky. "Sorry, I don't know what happened." His mother looks at him skeptically but nods, squeezing his shoulder one last time before turning her attention back to the prayer. The family continues in their quiet devotion, but Soro remains off balance, trying to push the remnants of that strange, otherworldly experience out of his mind. But the feeling doesn't fade. He can't shake the sense that something just happened to him, something that shifted the course of his reality. He's not sure if he was dreaming or losing his grip on reality, but as he sits there, the warmth of his family surrounding him, he knows one thing for sure: whatever it was, he can't escape it. Not now. not ever again. And for a moment, he wonders if the choice he made, whatever it was, has already begun to change him. After a long pause, he reaches for his phone under the table, his fingers lightly brushing the screen as he unlocks it. He considers texting Rosen, asking about what happened earlier, to make sure it wasn't all just a figment of his imagination. But not yet, he thinks. After dinner. He could text now, but it would feel too strange. Like he's living in some otherworldly state while still at the table with his family. It wouldn't be right to start texting before he even picked up his fork. He'll wait until the meal is over. As his mom continues praying, he steals another glance at his phone, his mind still buzzing. Was any of that real? Soro sighs quietly to himself, leaning back in his chair, the familiar hum of conversation around him almost comforting now. Just eat, he mutters under his breath, and text later. The words feel almost absurd, yet somehow necessary. The tension doesn't dissolve, but for now, he tries to ignore it. And just as his mind threatens to wander back into the haze of questions, he lets the moment slip by. The unease doesn't go away, but the comfort of his family, the rhythm of their prayers, grounds him for the moment. The world outside the dinner table feels far away now. And yet, Soro knows that whatever he's feeling, whatever decision he made earlier, is going to come for him. Whether it's real or not doesn't matter. It's already begun. And with that, the scene cuts to black.